We live in a culture that teaches us to run from pain, to put on a brave face, to numb ourselves with busyness or distraction. But here's the truth: when you don't let yourself feel it, you don't actually escape it. You just bury it deeper, and it shows up later in ways you don't expect. So the first step is simple but terrifying. Let it hurt, because hurt is honest. Hurt is real. Hurt is proof that you cared, proof that something mattered enough to leave a mark on your heart, and pretending it doesn't hurt doesn't make you strong, it just makes you disconnected. Healing is not a straight line. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, and it's often slow. But letting it heal is about giving yourself permission to mend without shame, to acknowledge that wounds take time, to accept that sitting with the ache is not weakness, it's courage. And when we allow ourselves that grace, we begin to rebuild piece by piece. And then comes the hardest part: letting it go. Because letting go doesn't mean it never happened. It doesn't mean the person or the experience didn't matter. It means it no longer controls you. It means you loosen your grip on the story that keeps you stuck. It means you choose peace over the need to keep replaying what cannot be undone. Moving on is not forgetting. Moving on is remembering with softness instead of sharpness. It's transforming the pain into wisdom. It's carrying the lesson without carrying the weight. It's saying to yourself, I survived this, and I am not defined by it. I am shaped by it. Freedom comes on the other side of surrender, when we stop fighting reality and start opening to possibility, when we stop clutching the pain and start embracing the future, when we realize that the greatest strength we can show is the willingness to let go. And in that moment, we step into the life we were meant to live: lighter, freer, braver. We live in a world where pain is something most of us are taught to avoid at all costs. From a young age, we learn to cover it up, to distract ourselves, to put on the mask of I'm fine, even when we're not. The truth is, pain makes people uncomfortable, not just the person feeling it, but often everyone around them too. So instead of sitting with it, instead of allowing ourselves to hurt, we often find ways to run. We throw ourselves into work, into relationships, into distractions that keep us from facing what is really going on inside. But when we numb or run from pain, we don't erase it. We just delay it. We bury it deeper, and it waits for us, showing up later in ways we never expected, in bursts of anger, in unhealthy patterns, in the inability to trust or connect. The first and hardest step in moving forward is learning to simply let it hurt. Letting it hurt is not about being dramatic or drowning in sadness. It is about being honest with ourselves, about acknowledging that what we went through matters, that the loss or betrayal or disappointment has left a mark. When we allow ourselves to hurt, we are allowing ourselves to be human. We are not machines that can just reboot after heartbreak or betrayal. Our hearts break, our spirits ache, our bodies carry stress. And pretending those things aren't real does not make us stronger. It makes us more fragile in the long run. Giving yourself permission to feel the sting, the sorrow, the heaviness is an act of courage, because it means you're refusing to hide from reality. It means you're choosing authenticity over the illusion of toughness. There's a deep misconception that strength means holding it all together, keeping a stiff upper lip, pushing through no matter what. But real strength is often the opposite. Real strength is allowing yourself to cry when the tears come, admitting that something hurts when everyone expects you to be fine, sitting in the discomfort of grief or rejection without needing to immediately patch it up. When we let ourselves hurt, we are telling our bodies and our hearts that their signals matter, that the pain we feel is valid, and by validating that pain, we open the door for eventual healing. We cannot heal what we refuse to feel. Letting it hurt is also about not comparing our pain to someone else's. It's easy to say, well, other people have it worse, so I shouldn't be upset. But pain is not a competition. Your heartbreak, your loss, your trauma is real. even if someone else's pain looks bigger or different. Dismissing your own hurt doesn't honor anyone else's, it just dishonors you. Pain demands to be acknowledged, and until you acknowledge it, it keeps finding ways to be seen. Sometimes it shows up as irritability, sometimes as withdrawal, sometimes as self-sabotage. But when you finally stop and say, "This hurts, this really hurts," you begin to take back the power that denial or avoidance stole from you. It's important to understand that letting it hurt does not mean wallowing forever. It doesn't mean staying stuck or replaying the story endlessly. It means giving your heart the respect it deserves by acknowledging its bruises before trying to move forward. It means creating space for your emotions instead of locking them in a box. It means learning to sit in discomfort without rushing to escape it. That is one of the bravest things we can do because it's tempting to chase relief in whatever form we can find it: numbing, distraction, false positivity. But all those things only create temporary relief. They don't build the foundation for real healing. Letting it hurt is the groundwork. It's the raw, unpolished, vulnerable beginning of change. It's what clears the fog and allows us to eventually see clearly. Without that willingness to feel the weight of our pain, we cannot truly release it later. When we deny the hurt, we also deny the possibility of genuine growth. But when we allow ourselves to hurt, even when it feels unbearable, we are saying yes to the process that will one day lead us to peace, to clarity, and to freedom. Healing is one of those things we all want, but very few of us are willing to walk through the process it actually requires. We want the quick fix, the overnight change, the magic answer that takes away the ache in our chest or the heaviness in our spirit. But healing is not something you can rush. It is not a button you can press. It is a process that unfolds in its own time. To let it heal means to accept that there is no shortcut, no bypass, no clever trick that skips the messy middle. It means allowing your heart, your body, and your spirit to do what they were designed to do, which is repair and restore, but only when we give them space and honesty. Healing often looks like exhaustion, like days when you don't feel like you're making progress, like nights when the memories resurface and you wonder if you'll ever be whole again. But what we don't always realize is that even in those moments, something deep inside us is stitching itself back together, even if we can't see it yet. The reason healing is so uncomfortable is because it asks us to face the parts of our story we would rather skip. It asks us to sit in the silence where the truth is loudest, to acknowledge the wounds instead of covering them with distractions. To let it heal is to surrender control, to stop trying to dictate the timeline or the outcome. It's to trust that the broken pieces of you are not permanent, that they can form a new shape, even if that shape is different from what you imagined before the pain. Healing is about trust. Trusting yourself, trusting the process, trusting that life after hurt can exist, even if it doesn't look like life before hurt. That's hard for many of us because we want certainty, we want guarantees, and healing doesn't work with guarantees. Healing works with faith, with patience, with compassion for yourself when the world is telling you to hurry up and move on. Letting it heal also means learning to sit with discomfort without turning it into self-punishment. So many of us confuse pain with weakness, and when we struggle to heal quickly, we beat ourselves up as though not being over something already is a flaw in our character. But healing has no deadline, no expiration date, no competition. It is not about keeping up with anyone else's journey. It is about tending to your own wounds with gentleness. When you let it heal, you stop asking, "Why am I not over this yet?" and instead begin asking, "What do I need right now to feel safe, to feel supported, to feel like I am moving in the right direction?" Sometimes that answer is rest, sometimes it's tears, sometimes it's connection, sometimes it's space. Healing is not linear. It doesn't go in a straight upward line. It circles, it dips, it pauses. It surprises you with sudden breakthroughs after long stretches of nothing. That's why patience and self-compassion are not optional. They are essential. There is also an element of courage in letting it heal, because to truly heal, you have to be willing to touch the wound. Just like a physical injury, ignoring it or covering it up with a bandage doesn't always mean it's repairing underneath. Sometimes the wound needs to be cleaned, it needs air, it needs care, and that care might sting before it soothes. Emotional healing is the same way. It often hurts before it helps. It often feels worse before it feels better. Facing the truth of what broke you, revisiting memories, admitting the impact it had on you, these are painful steps, but they are also the steps that allow the wound to close in a healthy way. Without them, the pain festers, it lingers, it disguises itself as anger, bitterness, or indifference. Letting it heal means choosing the harder path in the short term so that you don't carry the same pain for a lifetime. When you begin to let yourself heal, you may not notice change right away. There may not be a moment when everything feels lighter overnight, but over time, little by little, the weight begins to shift. What once felt unbearable becomes tolerable. What once consumed every thought becomes just a part of your story. Healing transforms the raw wound into a scar, and while the scar remains, it doesn't bleed anymore. That scar becomes a reminder that you endured, that you made it through, that your body and your spirit knew how to mend themselves when given the chance. Letting it heal is not about erasing the pain or pretending it never happened. It's about allowing yourself to carry it differently, with less heaviness, with more grace, and with a sense of wholeness that slowly returns when you honor the process instead of resisting it. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood parts of moving on, because many people think it means forgetting or pretending something never happened. But that's not what letting go truly is. Letting go is not erasure, it's release. It's loosening the grip on the story that has been replaying in your mind, loosening the grip on the anger, the disappointment, or the hope that something in the past could somehow turn out differently. When we refuse to let go, we keep living in the same moment again and again, even though time has already moved forward. Our minds and our bodies stay trapped in the loop of what hurt us, and that loop robs us of presence, of joy, of connection to the life happening in front of us. To let it go is to acknowledge that holding on isn't serving us anymore, that the past will not rewrite itself, and that clinging to it will not make it fairer or easier to understand. The struggle with letting go is that part of us believes holding on keeps us safe. We think that if we keep replaying the memory, we can somehow protect ourselves from it happening again. We think that if we keep reminding ourselves of how much it hurt, we'll stay guarded, alert, less likely to be hurt in the future. But what really happens is that holding on keeps us tethered to the pain itself. It becomes a chain we drag behind us, heavy and unrelenting. Letting go doesn't mean you are suddenly vulnerable or naive. It means you are choosing not to let past pain dictate your present life. It's the decision to stop living in a relationship with something that already ended, to stop giving energy to a story that can no longer change, and to redirect that energy into your own growth and freedom. There is also a misconception that letting go means letting someone else off the hook. Like forgiveness automatically absolves the person who hurt you, but letting go is not about them, it is about you. Holding on to resentment, to rage, to endless what ifs only ties you closer to the very thing that broke you. Letting go is about cutting that tie so that you no longer have to carry the weight of someone else's choices. It is not about excusing what happened. It's about refusing to let what happened own every corner of your heart. When you let go, you take back your power because you are no longer controlled by the past, no longer fueled by the need for it to be different. You start to live in today instead of yesterday, and that shift is where freedom begins to take root. Letting go is also not something that happens overnight. It is not a single decision. It is a practice, sometimes a daily one, sometimes even moment by moment. You may think you've released something only to feel the grip of it again days later. And that doesn't mean you failed. It means you are human. It means the wound was real and the connection deep, and it will take time to fully loosen your hold on it. Every time you notice yourself drifting back to the pain, you get another opportunity to choose release, to say to yourself, I am no longer carrying this. And in that repeated practice, the hold weakens. With time, the emotions shift from sharp to dull, from overwhelming to manageable, and eventually you realize that the story no longer pulls you in the same way. That's the quiet, gradual power of letting go. What we often discover when we finally begin letting go is that our hands and hearts are suddenly free to receive something new. While we were clenching so tightly to what hurt us, we had no space left for joy, for peace, for new love, or new opportunities. The act of release creates space, and in that space, healing deepens and life begins to flow again. Letting go doesn't mean losing what mattered. It means allowing what mattered to take its rightful place in your story instead of dictating the rest of it. It means you get to carry the lessons, the growth, the wisdom without carrying the constant ache. It means you honor your past without letting it rule your future, and you begin to step into the possibility of what life can look like without the chains of yesterday holding you back. Moving on is so often misunderstood as forgetting, as if healing means erasing the past, wiping it clean, and pretending it never existed. But the truth is, moving on is not about forgetting at all. Forgetting would mean denying the very experiences that shaped us, denying the love, the lessons, the heartbreak, the wisdom that came from it. When people tell us to just move on as if it's the same thing as pretending it didn't happen, what they're really asking is for us to abandon pieces of ourselves. But we don't move on by forgetting. We move on by transforming. We take what once cut us deeply and we allow it to become something that builds us, something that changes the way we see the world, something that adds depth and compassion to our story. The pain may remain a memory, but its grip on us loosens when we allow it to evolve into wisdom instead of staying stuck as a wound. The transformation begins when we allow ourselves to stop asking why it happened and start asking what it gave us. That doesn't mean the hurt was justified or deserved. It never excuses what happened, but it shifts the focus to what we can carry forward. Maybe the heartbreak gave you a clearer sense of your worth. Maybe the betrayal taught you what kind of loyalty you truly deserve. Maybe the loss carved out space in you that now allows you to hold others in their grief with gentleness. Moving on is not forgetting those events. It's reimagining what they mean in your life. Instead of being the defining moment that broke you, they become the turning points that grew you. Transformation doesn't erase the memory, but it changes your relationship with it. The pain is no longer the centerpiece of your story. It becomes a chapter that led to something greater. Part of why moving on is so difficult is because we're afraid of what it means about us if we let the pain transform. We sometimes believe that if we stop hurting, it means the person we lost or the relationship we had no longer mattered. We tie our grief and our anger to proof of love, proof of loyalty, proof that it all counted. But moving on doesn't diminish the significance of what happened. It honors it in a new way. It says, this mattered enough to shape me, and I'm carrying that meaning forward instead of staying buried in the loss. Moving on allows you to keep the love without holding on to the suffering, to keep the lesson without replaying the betrayal, to keep the memory without keeping the wound open. That shift requires courage because it feels risky to let go of the old ways of holding on. But in reality, it's the only way to free yourself without erasing what mattered. When you begin to move on in this transformed way, you realize that the story doesn't define you, it refines you. You stop introducing yourself to yourself as the person who was hurt, and you begin to see yourself as the person who grew. Moving on is not an erasure of identity. It's an expansion of it. You are no longer just the one who was abandoned. You're the one who learned resilience. You are no longer just the one who was betrayed. You're the one who learned to discern what true loyalty looks like. You are no longer just the one who lost. You're the one who understands the depth of love and the strength it takes to continue living with an open heart. This is what transformation looks like, taking what was meant to diminish you and letting it add depth instead. The beauty of moving on is that it doesn't ask you to let go of everything. It only asks you to let go of the weight that keeps you from stepping forward. The love, the memories, the wisdom, the growth, you carry those with you. The bitterness, the endless replaying of the story, the resentment that drains you, those are the things you slowly release. And in that balance, you find freedom. You learn that moving on is not betrayal of your past self, but loyalty to your present and future self. You learn that you can honor what happened without being trapped by it, that you can respect your own journey without being defined only by the hardest chapters. Moving on is not about forgetting. It's about transforming the rawness of the pain into the richness of wisdom. And that wisdom becomes part of who you are as you continue to live, grow, and create the next chapters of your story.